Hey there, just a heads up, this episode of the Judo Science Podcast was created with help from AI. Some of the voices you'll hear are synthetic, but the ideas come from real research and real judo.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are putting on our, well, maybe not our white belts, but we're definitely diving deep into the science behind combat sports training.
Yeah, specifically judo. We've got a stack of research here looking at judoka, the athletes, the coaches, trying to pull out what really matters in how you structure training.
Right. The mission today is pretty clear. We want to give you, the listener, a kind of blueprint. How do you maximize performance, but also, crucially, minimize that risk of burnout?
We're trying to go beyond just work hard. It's about how to work smart. These sources look at everything from the sort of psychological side of different exercises
To the real nuts and bolts of like long-term strength programming. How do you actually build that power?
Exactly. We're looking at two really fundamental questions here, but they're both critical. First, what makes a training week feel productive versus just feeling crushing? So we're looking at adolescent athletes, seeing how different training modes like specific judo drills versus, say, just going for a run and then the rest periods after, how that affects how they feel mentally and physically.
That's the sort of heavy psychological load side you mentioned.
That's it. And then, yeah, we completely switch gears. We look at competitive adults, and the challenge there is more about physical engineering.
The strength training blueprints.
Yeah.
You mentioned linear versus undulating periodization.
Precisely. Comparing those two approaches. And the big question, do those gains you make in the gym, the impressive numbers, do they actually help you win a match when it counts?
Yeah, does it transfer?
Does it transfer? That's the core of it. Because judo training, it's this dual challenge, right? You need that explosive capacity, aerobic, anaerobic, the grip strength has to be immense. But you are constantly managing this heavy physical load and the psychological load to make sure you don't tip over into overreaching or getting injured.
So, we're trying to find out what really moves the needle for the mind and for the body.
Let's find out.
Okay, let's unpack that first study then. This one gives us some immediate insights into recovery and specificity. It looked at 61 adolescent judoka, boys and girls around 15 years old, high-level competitors.
Right, and the setup was pretty tough. 4 weeks of intense training.
Yeah.
High-intensity intermittent stuff.
Brutal.
Yeah, and then crucially, after that intense block, they had a 12-day tapering period. Volume flashed way down intentionally.
To see the recovery effect. Huh?
Exactly. And within that intense block, they split the athletes into different groups based on the type of training they did, all at similar intensity levels.
Okay, what were the types?
So you had Randori, that's the grip fighting, the sort of live opposition practice.
Right, without the throws necessarily, but the fight is real.
Yeah. Then Uchi-komi, which is more about technique, repetition, movement, maybe a bit more creativity there.
Okay.
And the third group was just running. High-intensity interval sprints, but totally non-sport specific, just conditioning. Plus a control group, of course.
Gotcha. So, first big takeaway. This kind of confirms what coaches have known or felt for ages. The taper works.
Oh, absolutely. The benefits of that 12-day period with reduced volume, massive. Undeniable.
What do they actually measure?
Well, they saw huge improvements, across the board in key recovery metrics during that taper compared to the 4 weeks of hard graft.
Like what?
Things like RPE rating of perceived exertion that went down, total quality of recovery scores, TQR, they improved significantly.
Okay, so they felt better recovered.
Definitely. And then there's the Hooper Index. Have you tracked this before?
I know the name. It's like a combined score, right?
Exactly. It's basically the athlete's holistic scorecard for how miserable they feel. That's maybe a bit harsh, but...
No, I get it. It sums things up.
Yeah, it adds up perceived stress, fatigue, sleep quality, or lack thereof. And DOMS, that delayed onset muscle soreness.
Right. So when the Hooper Index improved...
It means the scores went down, the athletes felt significantly less stressed, less fatigued, less sore, better sleep, just generally less broken.
And this wasn't just random chance.
No way. The stats were really strong. P-values less than 0.001. That's basically saying it's almost mathematically certain that those 12 days of tapering caused the recovery.
Okay, so taper, check. Definitely do it. But you mentioned an aha moment.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting for planning conditioning. It's the difference between the types of training during that intense block.
Even though the effort felt the same. You said the RPE was similar across groups.
Exactly. They were all, physiologically speaking, working just as hard, exhausted. But, and here's the kicker, the non-specific running group, they consistently reported worse well-being.
Worse? How so?
Significantly worse. Higher scores for stress, higher fatigue, more DOMs, worse sleep quality overall. Their experience of that same training load was just much more negative compared to the judo-specific groups.
Wow. And the judo groups, the Randori and Uchi-komi.
They were the opposite. They reported significantly higher physical enjoyment and better TQR, that total quality of recovery.
So same physical effort, but one feels way worse and recovers less well.
Pretty much. And if you think about the bigger picture, it points directly to motivation, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, sports-specific stuff like Randori, that's real combat, real opposition. Uchi-komi involves technique, maybe some creativity. It's inherently more engaging, right?
The game feels like judo.
Exactly. It seems like that preference, that engagement, translates into feeling less stressed subjectively and perceiving better recovery.
But the mind handles it better if the work feels meaningful.
That seems to be the message. The mind copes better with the load when the work is specific and, dare I say, maybe even enjoyable.
Okay, but let me push back slightly on the practical side. Coaches need efficiency, right?
Sure.
If running gets you that high-intensity physiological hit quicker, maybe easier to set up than a complex Randori session. Isn't that temporary psychological dip worth it for the physical gains? Are we saying conditioning has to be fun?
That's a fair question. But I think the sources are leaning pretty strongly towards yes, if the goal is long-term health and performance.
Really?
Think about it. If the non-specific training consistently spikes those negative metrics, stress, fatigue, poor sleep, the very things that predict overreaching and burnout, then maybe that short-term efficiency isn't worth the long-term risk. The implication here is, yeah, use specific training for conditioning whenever you practically can. It seems to buffer the athlete against some of the negative psychological side effects of high intensity.
Okay, so the mind handles sport-specific stress better.
Oh.
Got it. Makes sense. But what if the athlete's mind is willing, but the body just isn't strong enough?
Right. That brings us perfectly to the second study. We're shifting now from adolescent well-being to adult strength development, finding the best way to structure that supplemental strength work.
And this one looked at 13 male adult judoka, experienced guys.
Yep. And the core question was how to structure an 8-week strength program running alongside their regular judo training.
Comparing those two big methods, linear periodization, LP, and daily undulating periodization, DUP.
Exactly. We should probably define those quickly, shouldn't we? They get thrown around a lot.
Yeah, please. LP first.
Okay. Linear periodization is conceptually pretty straightforward. You progress things like load and regroup sequentially over blocks of time.
So like a month of high volume, lower weight, then a month of lower volume, higher weight.
That's the classic model, yeah. It's blocked out, quite predictable. You build a base, then intensify.
Okay. And DUP, daily undulating.
DUP mixes it up much more frequently, usually within the week, the microcycle. So you might lift heavy for low reps on Monday, lighter for higher reps on Wednesday, focus on power or speed on Friday.
Ah, so the intensity and volume undulate or wave up and down day to day.
Precisely. The key thing in this study, though, was that they made sure the total amount of work done over the 8 weeks was the same for both the LP and DUP groups.
Okay, same total work, just structured differently.
Yeah.
So, who won? Which method built more strength in those 8 weeks?
Well, here's the interesting part. It turns out both worked equally well.
Really? No difference.
In the short term, for these specific outcomes, both the LP and DUP groups showed similar and pretty significant gains in strength. It suggests both are effective ways to get stronger over an 8-week block.
And the gains were impressive, Ray. I saw some numbers.
Oh yeah, genuinely impressive. They saw a huge drop in skin fold thickness, like 26.5% average decrease. Great for body composition.
Wow.
And maximal strength shot up. Bench press 1RM up 11.6%. Row 1RM up 11.5%, squat 1RM up 7.1%. Those are solid gains in 8 weeks for trained athletes.
And crucially, they also improved on judo-specific strength tests, didn't they? The stuff that really matters on the mat.
Exactly. Things like maximal isometric hand grip strength, vital for controlling the judogi, that went up by as much as 6.1%.
Okay.
And maybe even more relevant, their isometric strength endurance improved. They tested this with a chin-up where they had to hold the position while gripping a judogi. They could hold it longer.
Stronger grip, better pulling endurance. Sounds like exactly what a judoka needs.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But here's where it gets, well, really interesting, maybe even a bit confusing.
Uh-oh.
Despite all these fantastic strength gains, these very relevant conditioning improvements over 8 weeks,
Yeah.
those gains did not translate into better performance during simulated matches.
Wait, hang on. Nothing changed in the matches at all.
Pretty much nothing they measured. They had the athletes do 3 5-minute simulated judo matches before and after the 8 weeks.
And despite being like 11% stronger on the bench press, much leaner, better grip.
They saw no significant change in physiological responses during the fight. Blood lactate levels were the same, heart rate patterns were the same. Their perceived exertion, RPE, during the match didn't change.
Okay, maybe they just felt easier.
Yeah.
But did they do more? More attacks? More grips?
Nope. Zero change found in the number of technical actions like feints or actual attacks performed during those competitive simulations. Didn't matter if they'd done LP or DUP.
That's wild. They get demonstrably significantly stronger and fitter in multiple ways. But their actual performance profile in a fight situation looks identical.
Now, that lack of transfer is really the headline finding here. It forces us to ask that question again. Why? Why didn't these big strength gains translate into better competitive performance, at least in this simulated setting, over this time frame?
Yeah, I mean, a 12% jump in pulling strength, better endurance hold. If that doesn't help you attack more or control the pace, what does?
The study floats a few possibilities. One idea is maybe the athletes subconsciously regulated their effort.
Meaning what? Like coasted at the old level?
Sort of. Or maybe they used their new strength defensively just to counter their opponent and maintain the same relative pace rather than actually pushing harder or attempting more offensively. Self-pacing.
Okay, that's one possibility. What else?
Another is that maybe the type of strength built wasn't transferable enough. You know, bench press, squats, rows, their general strength exercises. Perhaps they don't directly map onto the incredibly complex, dynamic, chaotic movements of a live judo match well enough.
So the strength is there, but they couldn't, like, apply it effectively in the specific context of judo techniques.
That's another theory. Or, the third idea the source mentions, maybe 8 weeks just isn't long enough.
Not long enough to see the transfer.
Not long enough to fundamentally change the deeply ingrained technical habits and tactical decision-making of an experienced adult athlete. You get stronger, yes, but changing how you fight under pressure might take a lot more time and specific practice integrating that strength.
So pure strength gain by itself, even significant gain, might not be enough to shift your fighting style in just 2 months.
It seems that way based on this evidence. The strengths didn't automatically lead to more attacks or a different physiological output in the match itself.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've got the adolescent well-being study and the adult strength study. What are the sort of practical takeaways for you, the listener, the coach, the athlete?
Right, let's synthesize. There are definitely some critical, actionable insights here, covering both recovery philosophy and the nitty-gritty of strength programming.
Okay, takeaway number 1 seems pretty clear. The taper. If you're planning a training year, a macrocycle.
Don't skip the taper. That 12-day period after intense training isn't just nice to have. It provides basically a mathematically guaranteed benefit. It significantly improves those well-being scores.
That Hooper index, the misery scorecard.
Exactly. Lowers that score, boosts recovery. It works. Do it.
Okay, takeaway number 2. Exercise selection for conditioning.
Use sport-specific work whenever you can. Things like Randori, Uchi-komi, and Judo. The study strongly suggests they lead to better psychological states.
Lower stress, better perceived recovery, even higher enjoyment.
Compared to non-specific stuff like running, even if the physical effort, the RPE, feels the same.
So the mind matters just as much as the muscles for handling hard conditioning.
Absolutely. The mind seems to be a critical factor in how the body adapts to and recovers from intense training load.
Got it. And takeaway number 3 from the adult strength study.
For your actual strength programming, the short-term picture, like an 8-week block, suggests that linear periodization and daily undulating periodization are pretty much equally effective.
For building that maximal strength and local muscular endurance like the grip stuff?
Exactly. Which actually gives you, the coach or athlete, flexibility. The choice might just come down to preference.
Does the athlete thrive on the daily variety of DUP, or do they prefer the structure and focus of LP blocks?
Right. It seems you can choose based on what fits the athlete's psychology or the overall training plan better without necessarily sacrificing those short-term strength gains.
Okay, so those are the big 3. Any other sort of actionable advice popping out?
I think the most practical thing is to actually monitor those subjective well-being indices we talked about.
Sleep quality, stress levels, fatigue, muscle soreness, that total quality of recovery score.
Yeah, track those alongside the usual RPE. They are really critical warning signs for training stress accumulating. Especially useful maybe when you are using that highly motivating sport-specific training.
Because even though it feels better mentally, it's still physically demanding.
Exactly. It still imposes a high physiological load, so don't just rely on motivation. You still need to ask the athlete, essentially, how broken do you feel today? Don't wait for objective measures like blood tests. The subjective feeling matters.
Good point. Okay, we've definitely covered a lot of ground today. We went from, the teenager's day-to-day mental state during training,
All the way to the adult athlete facing that big challenge of structuring their long-term strength development.
and that final finding from the adult study is quite something.
It really is. The fact that 8 weeks of pretty massive strength gains didn't clearly translate into measurable improvements in simulated match performance, didn't change heart rate, lactate, didn't lead to more attacks.
It really suggests that, especially in complex sports like judo, effective training isn't just about getting stronger in the gym. Raw strength isn't the whole story.
Not by itself, it seems there's a gap.
Right. It's about bridging that gap, isn't it? Between the raw physical capacity you build
Yeah.
and actually executing techniques effectively under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So the final thought maybe for you to chew on is this. If lifting heavier weights for 8 weeks doesn't result in even one extra feint or attack attempt in a match simulation, what else needs to happen?
What specific technical work or tactical drills need to be layered on top of those strength gains? How do you ensure that newfound power actually translates into scoring points, into winning that crucial golden score overtime period?
That seems to be the real puzzle. How do you connect the weight room to the tatami effectively?
Something for you to definitely consider as you plan out your own training or your athlete's training.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
Next time on the Judo Science Podcast, episode 22, Unlocking Judo Power, the surprising impact of resistance bands and jumps on performance.